Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about this other stance feature, which is respect, local practice and expertise. Do you want to just sketch out what you think we mean about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the aim of this is to balance this against this other idea, which is about evidence-based practice. I think sometimes there seems to be a bit of a kind of battle that goes on between either you're into evidence-based practice or you very much promote the kind of expertise of experienced clinicians. And we're trying to find a balance between those two. It's not either or, because we know that everybody knows in clinical teams that there are people who have, are really good at working with this type of client, and these things seem to us to be really important, that those don't get dismissed in some rather some rather superficial kind of narrative about evidence-based practice. So we're really keen to ensure that local expertise is also part of the package.
So in a sense, you're saying that local practice and expertise is what we talk about as practice-based evidence. Yeah. The evidence of our own eyes and our own experience of this neighbourhood, these kids, these problems, yes, as opposed to evidence-based practice, which is, I think, sometimes can be seen as falling from on high, yeah, worked out evidence that may come from a different country. On the other hand, they have very large numbers and have had very, very rigorous methodology applied to it, so that we have some certainties about that. Whereas this, the risk with that is that people go off on one and they do what they like. But this is this bit. Okay, so that's where we're at, where we are. We're thinking about that end of this seesaw. Yeah. And I think what you're saying is it is a bit of a seesaw. Yeah. That it sometimes feels like you can only have one or the other. Yeah. But do you want to just say a little bit more about how would that translate? What would that actually mean in practice for an ambit team?
Yeah, I think there's two bits. I think the one bit is that we'd like to start from a position that the ambit teams take a respectful position in relation to other teams working in the locality. One of the things that we particularly want to sort of highlight really is that we all teams, all services develop a bit of a kind of an understanding about other agencies, either through their immediate experience with other kind of workers from other agencies or through their clients. And that one of the things we highlight a lot is that we're all rather exposed to rather biased feedback from families and young people about other agencies. That it's sort of a commonplace that people come to us and say that this social care services weren't any good, or the hospital people weren't any good, and it's a very obvious way this is biased, because obviously for families that have successful interventions from other agencies, they don't come and see us. They don't come and see us because they've actually had a good deal. So we tend to almost inevitably, those families who have had unsuccessful experiences with other agencies end up with us, and they tell us about them. So I think all services are a bit prone to this.
That's very helpful. Because the other reason that I sometimes think we get biased feedback, and it fits, I'm sure, is actually how does a young person or anyone make you love me? If you've come to help me. Yeah. How do I make you really, really care about me and think, yeah, I'm up for helping this guy? I tell you how rubbish the last person was. Yes. And it was a little bit similar. It's something that I talk a lot about in training, is the experience I had with some building work at home, where the plumber would tell me how rubbish the electrician was. Yeah. And the electrician would tell me how useless the bricklaying was. Yeah. And the bricklayer would tell me how terrible the roofer was. And it was almost as though each profession came along and kind of tried to woo me by saying how bad a job the other person had done. And I think that happens for young people as well, that they know that we like to be the best. Yes. And they, not consciously, but maybe unconsciously, kind of play on that a bit, so we constantly get drip feed of disrespectful attitudes towards other professions. So how does that translate in terms of a stance? I mean, I guess the culture of a team would be that perhaps in a playful way we would try and kind of catch each other out if someone was saying, getting into a bit of conversation about, doctors, we might say, hang on, respect for local evidence, but put each other up and have that as a kind of this is our team culture. We don't allow that kind of bad-mouthing other
And
professionals.
I think it links to the centre of it, which is a mentalising position. That essentially, if we're trying to make sense of the activity of a social worker or a GP or a psychiatrist or whoever it is, that we don't really take the position that most of GPs go to work to deliberately make people ill, or that a social worker goes to work just deliberately to be unpleasant to a family. Although that's often how it might be described to us. So that we're trying to make sense of a GP's behaviour or a social worker's behaviour from their intentional stance. What is the social worker trying to do? Now, we're not saying everybody is kind of perfect and everybody's working to absolutely ideal intentions, but it's generally the case that people in the field are doing the best they can. I suppose it's something about taking an idea that people are doing the best they can, often in a context that might not make it easy for them. So it's something about respecting local practice and expertise, is that sort of initial mentalising stance, that's where we start from. It may not always be true. I'm not saying that we don't want to get
so
into
we are able to challenge
but
we would do that in a very explicit way. Absolutely. Rather than just getting carried along. So it's about respecting our own team's local practice and expertise, as well as the local practice and expertise of other professionals in the field. And I guess also the local practice and expertise in these other kind of professionals in terms of their knowledge about the young person, which is the family, and the young person themselves. That there is a kind of knowledge and expertise at kind of quite... Well, I don't like the idea of a hierarchy, but at a grassroots level, people often have real expertise about what works here, now, with this character, that some of the evidence-based practice doesn't. And I guess the other bit, before we finish, is just how we in AMBIT try to kind of gather these two together, rather than seeing them as kind of, in opposition. That our approach to manualising, which we discussed elsewhere, but this notion of a wiki manual, where evidence-based practice is curated, looked after by the AMBIT project and the Anna Freud, with view to the literature, but that can be married in a wiki with material that's curated locally by the local team, that they can add their own local practice-based evidence, what works here with these kids now. Our notion is that by bringing those two together, there's something very different from the either-or approach that's predominantly been the case.
Absolutely. Yeah.